Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is Alex Bailey from Alex Bailey Photos. On today's episode, we're going to talk about 5 things I wish I knew when I started photography. So here's tip number 1. Gear isn't everything. A lot of people have the assumption that to be the best photographer or videographer, you have to have the gear. And truth be told, gear is just an instrument. It's a tool of the trade. So that at the end of the day, if you don't know how to use a tool of the trade, you're only as good as your knowledge. You're limited to what you know, not what you have. So I can take a $5,000 camera or a $500 camera and still create the same image because I have the vision here, not because of what the gear can do for me. An amateur photographer can take the same $5,000 camera body and not produce the same image as a more pro-level photographer or videographer. So when I started photography years ago, 2 things I did wrong. 1, I spent money on things I didn't even need, and I also spent money I didn't even have. Yeah, I bought a Canon T2i, but I put it on credit. Because in my mind, I figured I had to have something that cost at least close to $1,000 at that time in order to be a good photographer, which is so not true. So a lot of my images came out, not necessarily the way I wanted them to. I saw all these other photographers and videographers and some of the content they were putting out back then. And in my mind, I'm like, what's wrong with me? Why is it that I'm not able to create the same type of image or the same level of quality? And which brought me back to my first point. I bought a bunch of gear that I didn't even know how to use. I didn't know how to use my camera or the lens or the flashes. I just figured the pros have it, so I have to have it. So I bought flash, I bought bags, I bought stands, lights, you name it. And I didn't even know the basis of the camera itself. I didn't know anything about the exposure triangle or ISO or grain. I figured if the image was dark, I just dropped the shutter speed down to 1/30th of a second and cranked that ISO all the way up to 4,000. Problem solved. No one explained to me about digital noise and how to avoid it and how it made your work look unprofessional. Learn your gear. Tip number 2, learn Photoshop. Alright, I know this is a touchy subject. I know there's a lot of editors out there that people use, Lightroom, Capture One, Photoshop, and the list goes on. But one of the things I wish I had started with in the beginning was learning Photoshop. I got in the program once or twice and I was just overwhelmed with all the tools, the buttons. I didn't know what to do, I didn't know what to edit. My pictures came out looking terrible. Well, to me now, but back then, I thought they were the coolest thing in the world. So learn Photoshop. Lightroom is great if you do a lot of batch editing. So if you shoot weddings or you shoot events and you've got 1,200, 1,500, 2,000 pictures to cull through and edit, Lightroom is perfect. Even if you start your portrait editing in Lightroom and carry it over to Photoshop, learning Photoshop is so essential to any workflow. There's just so much more versatility and capabilities and tools that you have available to you in Photoshop that Lightroom just doesn't provide. Tip number 3, find a mentor. There's nothing more beneficial than having someone to kind of show you the ropes when you get started. When I got started, I was so intimidated and overwhelmed by all the different buttons on the camera. I didn't know what was for what. I didn't understand why someone would choose to use ISO over shutter speed in order to control the light in a situation. It's little things like that that you learn as you go, and having a mentor to kind of show you those things will definitely save you a lot of headache on the path. Again, even if you can't find a mentor, there are a ton of great people on YouTube that you can follow that'll help you with a lot of these questions that you may come across as you start shooting. There are a ton of groups on Facebook that you can join. There's forums. You get active, get involved, ask questions. Tip number 4, just keep shooting. This is arguably one of the best pieces of advice I can offer anyone just starting. Just keep shooting. There's going to be a lot of times where you're not really sure what happened or how you even created a shot that you created. Just keep shooting. You'll start learning different things about the camera, learning different things about photography in general that'll help you to piece the puzzle together. And tip number 5, don't be afraid to fail. As a photographer, sometimes we get stagnant in our work, especially if we've been doing it for a really long time. And we start losing that lackluster. We start losing the creativity about it, and our work starts getting very monotone. It starts looking the same, and we don't really challenge ourselves. But if we keep on that trend, we're not going to grow as photographers, as creatives. So keep challenging yourself to be better and to do better. Maybe take a shot at an angle you've never used before. If you find that you're always taking low shots, all right, try taking high shots. If you find that you're always taking wide shots, start taking closer portrait style shots. So don't be afraid to fail. And that's it, guys. I hope these 5 tips are able to help you in your journey becoming a better photographer or videographer. And if it did, feel free to leave a comment below. Till next time, guys, keep creating.